Hello, welcome everyone here. I want to clear up a few things that hopefully will help you in programming in the future. So what we're looking at is the ingredient adjuster program from chapter 3. So what we need to do is look at what we have to do. And we have a recipe that says 1.5 cups of sugar, 1 cup of butter, 2 3/4 cups of flour, which is going to produce 48 cookies. So if you do all that stuff, mix them all together, do whatever you need to do, you get 48 cookies. Well, what happens if the user wants 50 cookies or 150 cookies or 200 cookies? Well, we need to be able to adjust that. So let's look at the variables that we're going to need. The first set of variables should be actually constants, and that is our original recipe ingredients. So now the determinant is, do we need to have them as an integer or should we have them as a double? So because we have 1.5 cups and we have 2.75 cups of flour, we definitely need to have them as a double. So we're going to type in const double. And remember uppercase. So we're going to have, let's just make it cups sugar. And we'll initialize it to 1.5. Then we will need butter, cups butter. We don't know that it's only going to be 1, so we'll just use cups. And I always like to put decimal points for floats and decimals, but it doesn't really matter either way. So then we're going to do flour. We'll do cups flour. And that will be 2.75. So now we have our original recipe set up here, and it makes for 48 cookies. Well, the 48 cookies is not going to change. The cups of sugar and butter and flour for the original recipe are not going to change, so they stay constants. So what we need now is we need a constant integer because the original cookie recipe is not going to change the amount of cookies that it makes. So we'll do an integer, and we'll call it, for lack of a better name, orig cookies. Or you can make it cookies for one batch, whatever you feel like, and that's going to be 48. So this is important to do this, because what happens if all of a sudden you find out it actually makes 50 cookies or whatever it is? So you don't have to do anything else but change this 48. So now we need a few more variables. So we're going to go with some doubles. And notice for time's sake, I'm not doing any commenting in here. But remember, when you do your programs, you're going to need to make the comments here. So let's go and choose new or adjusted. Let's just do adjusted sugar. And that will be 0.0. Then adjusted butter. And I need to fix that up top. And let's just do adjusted flour. So notice that we have a specific way of lettering it. So the doubles are all uppercase, and you have between the words in here, you're going to have an underscore because cups and butters and flour, all uppercase. This is camel case. The first word is lowercase, and the second word is capitalized. Same thing with these here. And you can come up with other variables if you feel that's better. So now we need to determine what is our new cookies. So let's just put new cookies. And we'll set that as 0. So let's just put one comment here is how many, I'll get that O in a minute, cookies does the user want to make. And for a sample comment here will be these will be the new adjusted amounts of ingredients. So something simple like that is just fine. And I'm going to get a space between the constants and the actual variables themselves. So now we're good. So all we have to do here now is ask the user, and we are missing one thing, which we'll go back to and do in a minute. So we're going to use cout, and we're going to put how many cookies would, I know I can do this, you like to make. Notice the space, and notice there is no NL. You want to make sure that the user knows exactly what you're putting. When it's on the next line, it can be confusing. So we're just going to do cin new cookies. So we have a, we need this. And we have new cookies and we have original cookies. They're both integers. So what we're going to need now is a double variable. And we'll call it recipe ratio or recipe multiplier. Whatever you come up with is fine. So what that is doing, if we are going to double the recipe, then the recipe ratio would be 2. If we're doing, so let's just say the original cookies was 50 and we wanted to do 150, then the recipe ratio would be triple, 3 times. If the original cookies was 50, say, and the new recipe was 75, it would be 1.5. So what I always do is I make things simple. So let's start out here and we'll test it. And we're not going to calculate anything right now. What we're going to do here is we're going to find the recipe ratio. So the recipe ratio is and looks like I spelled it wrong. And we're going to put in parentheses, and then we're going to do, it will be the new cookies, the one that's higher, which doesn't actually have to be higher. It can be lower. Maybe you only want to make 25. Divided by the new cookies divided by the original cookies. So now we have a mistake here. So let's look and see what's going to happen. And I'm just going to print out, cout recipe ratio. So what we'll do here now, having trouble typing. Now I got it. What we're going to do here now, let's just type in 100. So our recipe ratio should be 2. So then let's go and run it. And how many do we want? We want 100. And that looks good. We came out with 2. So no, we want 125. Let's try it again. Let's do 125. And it says 2. That doesn't make sense. How is that possible? And the answer is very simple. We're doing integer division here. So you're getting 125 divided by 50. It's 2 point something or other, but because these is integer, it's going to just chop off anything there. So what you need to do is you need to make one of these two a float or a double. So I'm going to just type in double. And the better way of doing it is using static cast. But for the beginning, we're going to just make it simple. So now we're going to run and test the same thing and see what we get. So how many do we want? We want 125, and let's see what we get. So now we get 2.5. So that works out good. So now we know that we have that working. We don't need to worry about that. So now what we're going to need to do is get the adjusted sugar, the adjusted butter, and adjusted flour. So that's simply nothing more than multiplying the original by the ratio. So let's go adjusted sugar is nothing more than the cup sugar times the recipe ratio. Then we'll do the adjusted butter. Is basically the same thing, only this time it's cups butter times the recipe ratio. And then we're going to do adjusted flour. Will be cup flour times the recipe ratio. So now we're looking good. We don't need this anymore, but we'll comment it out in case we have an issue. We can always open that back up. So now all we need to do is print it. Well, the problem is if we have an oddball thing, it just may not print nice. So let's do a cout and fixed. And we'll set precision. Let's set it to 2. And I think we're pretty good there in case we get like 3/4. So now what we're going to do is print out the rest. So we have cout, sugar needed, is that will be adjusted sugar. And we'll put that on another line. So now I'm going to copy and paste because I'm lazy. And I make too many spelling mistakes. So now when you do this, just make sure that you change your variables. So let's go and change this to butter. And we'll change this to flour. Then we need to do the same thing here. And flour. So let's start it off with something simple. And let's put the line here to separate this. And let's go and we'll test it with 100 cookies. Remember, we still have 50 here. We're going to change it back to 48. So let's go and see what happens if we choose 100 to see if everything doubles. So if I did it right, we should get 3 sugar, 2 butter, and 5.5 flour. And we're going to do 100. And we got 3 sugar. Butter need is, and that. So we have some cosmetic in here. We just need to change that to needed. So that looks good. So let's change this to needed. Needed. And needed. Let's change this back to the original 48. Now see how having a constant for the cookies makes it so much easier than if you're dividing anywhere. Because now I don't have to change anything but this one line here. So let's go and do 75. See what we get. And so 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 5, 6, and 130. So that looks good. Let's try 96. 3, 2, 2. And one more, we'll do 125. So sugar needed is 391, this in 7/16. So that looks good. And then if you want to, you can just do this. Just make sure that you put in the space. And we'll run it one more time and see how that looks. And we have sugar needed is 3.91 cups. So now you can play with the formatting, which we're not going to do right now, and have everything line up just nice so that the numbers line up, but we don't really need to do that in this particular one. So we are going to end the program. I'm going to end the video and see how simple that really is. So just remember the rule of thumb. You want to declare all of the items that are not going to change as constants. Make sure that they're uppercase, separated by an underscore if there's more than one word. Make sure that you're using the right type of variable data. So you don't want to, or constant data. I don't think you're going to ask for 47.5 cookies. So that should be an integer. And again, we have all this declared here. Make sure that you comment what is going to be. This is going to be here. You don't have to do stuff. Things like declaring variables is really not a good comment because, yeah, I can see that you're declaring variables. So you want to try to just say, what are these variables for? For up top here, we could put, this is the recipe for recipe amount for one batch. Now notice I'm not putting batch of 48 because maybe we find out that it really makes 50. So we're just going to leave that over here and put one batch of cookies. So all we're missing now is walnuts and all kinds of sprinkles and things like that, and we're good to go. So that is it. Hopefully this helps you. So I will try to do more and more of these as we progress. So have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.